Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have lots of great questions from our viewers.
All right.
Okay, I'm focused on parallel realities here.
Yes, that
Um,
is, and that is the subject.
from your perspective, what does it mean to visit a parallel reality where nothing is relevant?
There will always be something that is relevant, including the idea that nothing being relevant might be relevant for that particular person, although that would be rare. The idea of experiencing a parallel reality where nothing at first appears relevant can simply be a resting point for a person where they don't necessarily have to focus on anything in particular, but that wouldn't last that long. It may give them a break, a breathing space, as you say, but then relatively quickly, the relevance would come back in. Remember that you're shifting billions of times per second. You don't rest in any one particular parallel reality. And therefore, the idea of a string of parallel realities where nothing is relevant at all or nothing appears to be relevant at all would still be the product of shifting billions of times through different parallel realities, each of which doesn't necessarily present relevance to you. But that would quickly change because the whole idea is to experience what is relevant for you to be able to move through the process that is necessary for you to change and grow and discover new ideas and new experiences and new aspects of your being.
Thank you. Um, this person is saying, sometimes it's not clear which choice is the most exciting to me when I'm following the formula. I define the possible choices as parallel realities, and I ask myself, which parallel reality do I prefer? This seems to help me see the choices in a more expansive way that includes the corresponding past and future that goes along with each parallel reality, and helps me discern the choice that I prefer. I'd love to hear anything you have to add to this way of viewing our possible choices moment to moment. Thank you.
If that is the way that works for you, then that is your permission slip. That's the way that you believe you'll be able to have clearer discernment about which path to take. And as we said, if both really still continue to seem equal, you might as well flip a coin. That could reveal which path is more exciting, more relevant for you. But again, even if that doesn't work and both or more than two seem relevant, are they equally actable is the next question. If they are also not only equally exciting and equally actable, then again remember that the tool of synchronicity will come into play so that whatever path you do choose to go down, it really won't matter because synchronicity will turn you around through situations and circumstances that will arise to turn you around to the path that is more relevant for you at that time. So it really doesn't matter which you choose to act on first if all things seem to be equal. Synchronicity will bring you to the path that is important for you at that moment. But if that is the methodology that you prefer to use in terms of thinking of the choices as whole parallel reality time streams, then stick with it if that's what's working for you. It's fine as a permission slip.
Okay. Can you provide an idea of a permission slip for choosing the parallel reality we prefer? Is that what you just answered?
That
How
is
can we see the ones closer to us vibrationally to choose the best one?
Again, it is what we just answered, but at the same time, the bottom line answer, as you say, is follow the formula. That's again why we give it to you all. There are many questions that ask about things that the formula is the answer for. It is very important for all of you to have a deep understanding of the formula, to understand it as the instruction manual, to understand that that's how you're creating your reality anyway, to understand that while you are shifting billions of times per second, The formula is the navigation tool. It is what is bringing you closer and closer and closer to the vibratory version of Earth that is closest to the reality that represents your core vibration. It leaves nothing important out. It is very crucial to understand how the formula works, to have a deeper and more precise understanding of it, because it is often the answer to many of these individuated questions that seem to be different questions, but again, are really all the same question from a different point of view, and thus all have the same answer. Understand clearly and follow and act on the formula.
All right. And this person would like to know what they have to do to move to a parallel universe.
You're moving
And
to parallel universes all the time. Again, billions of times per second. Again, it is important to understand how things actually work. You're constantly shifting into a new universe, a new parallel reality. And thus, again, by following the formula, you will navigate yourself through all of these shifts in the direction and constantly continue to experience different versions, different universes, different parallel reality versions of Earth that are constantly more and more and more in alignment with your core true vibration.
so what happens to the me in the previous parallel universe?
It isn't you. The idea is that's another person experiencing whatever it is they're experiencing. But again, you're talking about a timeline. Remember, the idea of parallel realities really are like static frames, static photos. So the idea is there is no real experience in any of those things except by the idea of the greater being, the greater self, the more expanded non-physical version of the consciousness that you are, choosing to experience all of these things simultaneously. Therefore, it's only from your linear space-time perspective that you appear to be shifting. From the higher point of view and the higher being that you are, you're experiencing all these things at once. There is no shifting per se. All of these parallel realities are experienced by the greater you all at the same time. So the question that you're asking is only from the linear space-time that would seem to be leaving a version of yourself behind, but it doesn't really leave a version of yourself behind. That's another expression of the greater you being experienced simultaneously by the greater you. You're all going on at the same time. The shifting is only experienced from the linear space-time reality.
So the fact that all of these frames are static and that the difference in terms of the story that gets created by shifting through those static parallel reality frames is that as long as your frequency is in the correct state by following the formula and being more and more aligned to your true self, that becomes the automatic navigational tool that will take you into the story that is representative of your higher frequency.
Yes, it's as
So
simple as that.
that's what's so simple about it, is that once you get the knack at being your true self or being that frequency, that higher frequency, you can rely on it to bring you the things that are going to continue that higher state and
Yes.
give you a good story in a sense.
Give you the story that is relevant for the personality framework that you have created for this theme of exploration. All the things that are relevant for you. All the things that allow you to experience your true vibration, your essential self. Yes.
So that's why it all works, because they're all static frames and you're the guiding mechanism that determines which frames you experience.
From the linear perspective, yes. From the higher perspective, you're experiencing all of them anyway.
All right. So,
It is the physical perspective, the space-time linear perspective that allows you to individuate the frames, to experience them as a particular point of view, as a particular person. From the higher level, from the non-physical spirit level, you're experiencing all of them if you wish to. So it is the physical reality that allows you to experience the idea of the frames one at a time, one apparently after another, to give you the sense of linear change, of movement, of story. Yes.
Yeah, because I guess if we chose to incarnate onto Earth and be a physical being, knowing how to navigate this reality really makes a big difference in terms of whether or not you enjoy your time here.
Yes. Whether or not the story is truly representative of who you are. Physical space-time is for the purpose of experiencing a story. Your story. This story as this person.
That's your potential. And that's what the formula allows you to do, is move closer and closer to that potential experience.
That story that is you. Yes. To tell the story, to experience the story, to live the story that is uniquely this personality, this particular perspective. Personality is perspective. This perspective, a unique perspective, a unique story. You are a story as a physical being. You are a story, a linear story.
It's very amazing.
It is. This is why story structure is built into you, built into your psyche. This is why story is so important in physical reality. It is through story that you remember most efficiently any information that you care to remember. Always through story structure is the way you retain it, because it's built into you, because physical reality is all about telling a story, living a story, experiencing your unique story.
Yeah, well, once you get the hang of it, I guess, and you're experiencing more and more positive realities,
Yes,
then that at that point you may not feel such a strong need to escape from being physical.
of course not, because again, it is a valid experience and a beautiful story.
Wow, it's very empowering.
Yes,
So this question is asking these questions after reading Masters of Limitation.
yes.
First, are the parallel versions of Earth static moments of what we would consider infinitesimally small amounts of time, like a billionth of a second? Or are there different timelines based on differing probabilities? In other words, are they more like photos or videos? It seems like when you use the word frames, that they're more like photos, which we string together in our mind to create experiences of moving images that we think of as timelines. Is that correct?
Yes, you string the photos together to create the videos. You string the frames together to create the timeline. Yes, exactly so.
And how can we become more aware of the consciousness jumps we're making and be more conscious about choosing where we land, so to speak?
I suppose the answer would be the same as before. Follow the formula. The formula is the tool. Formula is the navigation. It is the rudder. Act on the formula. Understand it clearly and act on it precisely.
So
It's
the
that
idea,
the answer is not different.
and so the idea about having a positive state of being involves, exploring when negative feelings come up and transmuting that into something that's more positive for you and investigating your belief systems.
Yes, but it's not that you're actually calling negative things positive things. It's that you're staying in a positive state so you can get a benefit from whatever happens, even if it was generated negatively.
And part of that is saying you don't necessarily know why this particular thing manifested, but if you can find a positive way to relate to it, that's where you're the most powerful in transmuting it.
If
Is
you
that true?
find a positive way to relate to it, then you do know why it manifested for that purpose, to give you that option. to give you that opportunity to do exactly that. That's why it manifested. As I've said before, even if you manifest something you objectively and neutrally don't prefer, that's vibrationally not compatible with who you prefer to be, you have to know it's still there for a reason. And the reason why it's there is to give you an opportunity to find out if you're going to react the same old negative way to it, or if you're going to take the different path of responding more positively to know that it can serve you by defining why it's there and using why it's there in a positive way. Again, for example, if nothing else, manifesting something you don't prefer makes it clearer, by contrast, what you do prefer. Staying in the state of mind that allows you to use something you don't prefer as a comparison to what you do prefer, so that it makes what you do prefer clearer, is a positive way to use what you don't prefer. And once you've used it that way, it will go away because you've learned the lesson. You've used it in the way that serves you in a positive sense. And thus you do know exactly why it manifested that way, to give you the opportunity to do just that.
And also, at what levels can free will be exercised?
At every level except the original agreement you made. In other words, you have made an agreement to experience certain themes, certain challenges, certain transformative opportunities. You will experience them. But how you go through that, how you resolve that, how you deal with it, how you respond to it, how you figure it all out is up to your free will. Again, the analogy of the hallway. You are a hallway. You will experience things only as the personality that you are, that you have chosen to be, and face the challenges you have chosen to face. But you can face them positively, negatively. You can face them happily or sad. You can walk, you can run, you can fly, you can crawl backwards or forwards, up or down, side to side. You can look in every doorway down the hallway. You can ignore them all. How you go down the hallway is up to your free will as a physical being. But going down the hallway is what you will do as your destiny, chosen by the free will of the spirit that you are, the higher self that you are, from the non-physical realm. So you create your destiny by exercising your free will as a spirit. But once you have done so and determined the path you will walk, the hallway you will walk down, then that is your destiny. But you can use your free will as a living physical person to determine how you will experience that hallway, how you will be as the person that you have chosen to be.
And when can we move to a parallel reality where our physical body has different characteristics than the reality we currently occupy? Or is there a physical law that impedes that?
No, you can do that, and there are many demonstrations of that. What you might call an instantaneous healing, a spontaneous healing, or a shift or spontaneous change that seemed to involve no process at all, is sometimes representative of the idea that you've shifted to a parallel reality where you are now truly a different person and a different body and a different past and a different future. So every change is a total change, but they don't necessarily seem like it because there isn't necessarily what you would call a space-time gap in the idea. You don't see an abrupt change from one state to another, but sometimes you do. One of the clearest examples that exists in your reality about this are what you might refer to as multiple personality disorders, where one personality may have a tumor, and when it shifts to a different personality, then the body exhibits no tumor at all. These things have been documented and recorded in your reality, and many different cases like this. That's an indication of shifting to a parallel reality in such a manner that there is no continuity between one frame and the next. So yes, it's possible. But is it relevant? That's always the question. Is it probable, according to your belief systems, that this will happen? And is it relevant for you for that to happen that way? Or is the process necessary? Is the gradual process something you will learn something from? So yes, it's possible, but is it probable or relevant is really the question. It's not about avoiding things. It's about allowing the process that is there to be necessary. You can always reduce the amount of process by examining your belief systems about what you believe you need to really learn a lesson in any given process. You can always streamline the process down to its minimum, but you can't always eliminate the process, because process is the entire point of experiencing physical reality. Telling yourself a story, learning something from it, learning the moral of the story that you're telling yourself. So you can't necessarily completely eliminate the story, but often the story can shift in abrupt ways if it is relevant for the story to do so, if that's what will teach you the lesson that you chose to learn. But you can't use it to avoid the lesson.
And how is a person's spirit interacting with parallel versions of themselves?
In the same way that physical personalities do, because you have a soul for every personality, you have a spirit for every personality. So the idea is that you have individual people in individual realities with individual souls and spirits, all learning at the same time, and it all goes back to the oversoul. It's the oversoul level that experiences the simultaneity of all the incarnations, all the individual souls, all the individual spirits. A spirit is simply the collected experience of a soul in a particular personality framework. It's like, again, the idea is that the soul is the unfired, malleable clay. And when you have an experience, it turns that into the spirit, the fired clay, the ceramic of the experience. All of that is contained in the oversoul. But there are individual spirits, individual souls, individual higher minds for every individual physical personality. As you shift billions of times per second, not only are you shifting the idea of the physical persona, but the soul and the spirit and the higher mind that goes with it.
And are parallel realities infinite, or is it like grains of sand where there are so many that you just can't count them?
Parallel realities in general are infinite, but the idea is that only a finite number of them may be relevant for you to experience as a particular personality.
And it is so far understood that the collective animates the big picture. But how big is my impact on the collective manifestation in physical reality? How quickly can I change the big picture for myself?
You're changing the big picture as an individual all the time. Whether you are aware of the changes or not, or the impact or not, is a different issue. But you have all the impact on the collective that you can possibly have. By acting on your passion, it may reveal the impact that you have, but it doesn't create more impact on the total whole. You already have a complete and total impact on the whole just by being part of it. So any change you make changes the whole, although the degree to which you experience the change may be different, may seem small, may seem big, depending upon what acting on your passion does. But it always impacts the whole, no matter to what degree. It makes a difference.
Now, this person is saying that they witnessed someone speaking on stage and heard 8 simultaneous versions speaking at the same time. Time was standing still, so I could perceive several at once. Then I chose the one that was my highest excitement. Are we all broadcasting like this all the time on multiple channels? And is that another way to talk about parallel realities?
Absolutely. What you have simply done by expanding your consciousness is increased your sensitivity to pick up on more channels all at the same time. So the idea is that this is potentially a common symptom for those who are continuing to accelerate, continuing to upgrade their vibrational frequency, and allow their senses to span multiple parallel realities simultaneously, to download information more simultaneously when your senses can handle it, when you can process it by expanding your consciousness. You might call it a mini oversoul point of view. but this is going to become more and more common. This is how we experience reality in my civilization, which is why it is like walking through a dream of multiple dimensions simultaneously. We see many multiple probabilities all at once and can more easily recognize the path that is truly ours. So we simply give you congratulations on expanding your consciousness to the point where you're experiencing the broadcast of multiple realities simultaneously that everyone is already doing, but most people are simply not aware that they're doing.
And once we decide to shift from our current reality to another more aligned with our desires, how will individuals from our previous reality perceive our change or absence? Will they notice a shift, or will their memories and perceptions adapt to a new narrative?
They might, because remember, they're your projections and reflections of the change you've made within yourself anyway. Some of them might entirely disappear from your life if they simply have no purpose in experiencing the change. Some of them might recognize the change within you and say, oh, you're different today. I'm not exactly sure why. And some of them will relate to you completely as the idea of new people as a reflection of the new change you have made within yourself. It can be a range of things.
And can you tell us how we can tap into another parallel version of ourselves? For example, to download information or knowledge about a subject, how can we consciously experience that download?
You can allow your imagination to be your guide in telling yourself a story of that particular persona that is engaged in the subject matter you find interesting. Allow yourself the free rein to see what the story of that individual would be like in all aspects of that individual's life, and mirror it as best as you possibly can, taking actions on the opportunity that synchronicity provides to match the idea of the behaviors and actions and feelings and thoughts of the individual you imagine in your story is living that kind of a life, and mirroring it as best as you possibly can. If it's not relevant for you, synchronicity will turn you around from it. If it is relevant, then you'll become, in a sense, more like that individual and experience the download of information that is relevant for the individual that you are mirroring.
And for those of us who have faced prolonged health challenges, how can we consciously tap into and align with a parallel reality where our physical health is at its optimum? Are there specific practices or mindset shifts that can assist with this transition?
Yes, by asking yourself, what is the lesson you're learning, or what are you experiencing you otherwise would not have experienced by not having the health issue? By learning the lesson of why the health issue is there, you may be able to shift yourself to a parallel reality where it's no longer necessary, or perhaps more precisely, never has been necessary for that version of yourself to experience that health issue, because it's not necessary for you to experience that lesson as the new individual in the new reality. But the first thing to do is to let yourself learn the lesson of why you are experiencing what you're experiencing. Again, it's not about avoidance. It's not about running away from it. It's about accepting that that's what's happening in your reality and asking yourself to be clear about what you would not be learning that you are learning if you hadn't had the health issue. How is it serving you? What are you learning from it? Accepting that will allow you more opportunity to shift it, but you have to understand why it's there.
Um, in understanding of our biological aging process, telomeres are often viewed as indicators of the length and cellular health. How accurate is this understanding within the context of parallel realities? And can we shift into a reality where our telomeres are longer, healthier, and more robust?
Yes, and in fact, many of your scientists are studying this very idea now by studying certain species of bats whose telomeres never change. In other words, they never appear to age. A 1-year-old bat looks the same as a 15-year-old bat because their telomeres never change. So you are studying the idea of telomeres from a scientific point of view, but you can also understand again the idea of relevance in this. The telomeres will not change if you shift through a series of parallel realities where you are living more and more and more truly in the moment, because living in the moment creates the experience of less time and allows you to see yourself as age less. So it's about living in the moment in a certain way, and it is about that idea as to why the bat's telomeres never change. They are experiencing time in a very different way than you are. So the idea is to live more in the moment and find out that the result of that will be that your telomeres will stay longer because you're not really aging, because you're not experiencing as much time, because you're living in the timeless now.
And on the subject of bats, um, can you give us a little information about them as a spirit animal and also why they are so prevalent in terms of some of our health issues, at the present time?
Again, they form a kind of dichotomy symbol. The idea of being the only mammal that can fly is an expression of the potential in a positive way of how you can uplift yourselves and evolve yourselves in a way that makes you unique, to accelerate your vibration and ascend to greater heights. At the same time, they form the polarity of the idea of being ill at ease with yourselves, ill at ease with your true beings, not willing to live in the moment, but experiencing the concepts of anchoring into time and focusing on too many details that bring your vibration down. Things like lack of worthiness, regrets, self-judgments, which create the dark persona of the bat, symbolizing the idea of what you call evil, which is simply an anagram of live. So the idea is they perform the function, the symbolic function of the polarity of your potential to soar to great heights or to also be representative of deep, deep darkness and the idea of attachment to negativity in life.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. Does an instance in a parallel reality, this person's asking this, does an instance in a parallel reality of mine exist even if I or someone else doesn't ever think of it? And for example, I can imagine many bad things that I would really dislike if they happened. Do they exist in a parallel reality because I thought of them?
They exist in a parallel reality whether you think of them or not. Thinking of them may simply make you aware of the fact that those parallel realities do exist. But again, there are certain things in other parallel realities that are simply not relevant for you to experience in your timeline. So all of that's going on, all those things exist, all those are real experiences to some version of yourself, even though it's not really you, they're other people. But the idea is they may simply not be relevant for you. So you don't even have to be aware of them, even though they're going on. In the same way that watching one program on your television doesn't necessarily make you aware of the fact that there are other programs going on simultaneously, because that's simply not the program you need to be watching. Doesn't mean they're not happening. And it doesn't mean you have to worry about it. And if one moment or another you might think, oh, well, maybe there's another program where what I'm watching here is a little bit different or the opposite is happening to these characters. Well, yes, that may be true. But again, it has nothing to do with the program that you're watching.
So in terms of that idea that our consciousness is the projector
Yes,
and it's projecting itself through certain frames,
yes.
and the idea that if we suddenly become aware of a negative reality that maybe creates a feeling of fear in us, that we don't want to experience that, or, oh my gosh, that's happening somewhere, someplace. How can I make sure that the fact that I've just walked into the library, opened up this book and see this thing I don't want to experience, how can I relate to it in that moment so that I understand that I don't have to manifest that?
Don't be afraid of it. Just because you open the book doesn't mean that it has to become your story. You can close the book and put it back on the shelf. The neutral response is what lets you know you don't necessarily have to experience it. A fear-based response is telling you that you're attracting it, but that you still have time to close the book. But again, you can't close it out of fear. It might be giving you an opportunity to neutralize it, to realize that just because you observe something momentarily doesn't mean it has to become part of your story. So it's the reaction that's important, and the reaction that tells you what your belief system is all about. If you have a fear reaction, it could be telling you, hey, you have a belief system that says that this is more likely to happen than any other story. Why? Then figure that out. Take that opportunity to find out why you would react that way, why you would believe that that's more likely to happen in your life than any other kind of an experience. Give yourself the opportunity to change the story, to write a new story. Because if you have a fear reaction, there's a reason that you do. So find out what belief it's attached to, what belief that the fear comes from, and write a new story. Work with it. You're a writer. You're a creator. Write the story. Find out why you react the way you do, and change it by examining it and understanding why you're choosing to react as if that's more inevitable than any other choice. It's giving you the opportunity to write your story.
So if someone experiences the idea of fear of physical harm, in a sense, something bad happening to them physically,
Yes.
since that's such an ingrained part of our biology and it's necessary for us to remain physical to at least be recognizing that that would be physically harmful, what is the way to relate to these kinds of powerful fears that,
Yes, yes. As we said before, ask yourself, well, if that did happen, what would I think that was necessary to learn from? Can I learn it some other way? Is that the only way I can learn the lesson that that particular physical harmful experience would deliver to me? What would I learn from that if it happened that way? What beliefs is it telling me I have within myself that I don't necessarily prefer? Can I change those beliefs so that the physical harm becomes unnecessary? Is that what the fear of the physical harm is really all about? To bring my attention to the fact that I think I need to be physically harmed in order to learn something, in order to grow, in order to change? Is that the only way I can learn that lesson? What's it attempting to tell me? Find out what the beliefs are. Again, it goes back to the same thing. Why do you believe that that might be something that would be more inevitable in your life than any other choice?
so in a way, applying that idea to some of the tragic, I guess I'll call them tragic, some of the things that have happened on Earth recently having to do with fires and
Yes.
many, many people perishing and war where many people are perishing. The best way to relate to these ideas, since they come into our awareness, they appear to be occurring on our planet, and they may
What
happen to
are
people
the
looking.
lessons learned? What are the lessons learned from all perspectives? What are the lessons that are there for people to pick up on? Are these things the consequences of choices that people have made that may have been fear-based or negative choices? More often than not, yes, they are. So what can you learn to do differently from the experience? Many people might actually, on a different level, be willing to take themselves out in that experience so that the ones that remain can learn a lesson and change. Are they going to learn the lessons? Are they going to change the way they do things? Are they going to change the choices that they make or not? Again, remember, from a higher level, spirits know that lives in physical reality are temporary, are a projection of consciousness. And even though it may not seem so from the physical perspective, even groups of people may be willing to take themselves into spirit again, to pull back from the physical dream, to wake up in spirit, to teach the remainders a lesson, to allow them to examine their choices and change the way things are done so they can experience different consequences. That's usually the case.
So even when we see that some people have made choices that have led to their demise in one way or another, you can never really know if they're not, in a sense, sacrificing themselves, and for a higher purpose there and affecting many people. So it's not something to judge as a poor choice so much as it is to recognize you have no idea why that person chose that.
It could be the matter of a fear-based belief. It could be the matter of a higher spiritual calling that allows them to make the choice to let other people that are still physically alive learn to make different choices. It can be any of those things and a range of those things depending upon the person.
And is
But
it also,
the agreement is still made from a higher level that they will do this together, no matter what the individual reason is. The timing has been chosen by all of them to do it, to take that as an advantage, to base it on a consequence of either their individual belief systems or the collective belief system of what can serve the greater good.
and so is that the case also that there's sort of a window of time when it's your time to go, so to speak?
Yes,
And
that
that
can
at
factor.
another level, your spirit may choose whatever opportunities are presented in the present reality.
Yes, because again, there are many pathways in and there are many pathways out. So in a general window of timing that serves you best, you will generally get the consequence that fulfills the general window of timing that is the theme that you chose to explore at its conclusion,
Okay.
generally.
Now, okay, maybe this is the same kind of question. So
Maybe.
it has to do with people being afraid of painful death.
Yes,
Um, the person is saying that dying is like waking up from a dream and it's generally painless. However,
yes.
it appears that many death processes involve physical pain, such as illness, accidents, suicides. How can we ensure a pain-free experience during the dying process? And why does it often seem contradictory to the notion of a painless transition?
It's not contradictory because the transition itself is painless. But as you're saying, the process leading up to it may contain pain. Again, for a variety of different reasons based on the different people that experience it and whether or not it's a consequence of their belief system, whether or not it's something that helps accelerate their soul's experience by experiencing everything all at once at the end, rather than having experienced it through the entire span of their life. That can be a choice of the soul as well. It's like burning off the idea of experiencing negativity all at once instead of experiencing it spread out through the lifetime. A soul can choose that kind of an experience. It could also be an experience that gives someone left alive something to think about, something to learn from, something to change their reality by seeing what that person is going through. Again, it can be a variety of reasons based on the number of people experiencing the idea of pain. You have to take it on a case-by-case basis. You have to understand the reason why that's being experienced, and there are any number of reasons why.
Okay, and so many people are brokenhearted when their dog dies. Do dogs go to heaven and wait for us there?
Yes, everything goes home. Everything goes home. It's where you are. It's where you come from. Physical reality is just a projection. Your real home is in spirit. That goes for anything and everything. That's why people who have quote unquote near death experiences often get a glimpse that some experiences in non-physical reality appear to be very physical. Oh, there are trees and buildings and animals and people. Remember, it all starts there. It's not as below, so above. It's as above, so below. All those things that you think of existing in physical material reality exist first and foremost in spirit. So all of you are in spirit right now, and everything is in spirit right now. there is already a spirit version of everything that you experience in physical reality. It's experienced a little differently, of course, in spirit, because the space-time factor is different there. But nevertheless, it's all there. Shall we just use this linear term? It's all there first. Then it crystallizes into physical materiality, just to put it in a linear frame of reference. Now, of course, it all exists simultaneously, but you get what we're saying. As above first, then so below. So yes, of course, everything exists in spirit because that's where everything actually resides right now. The idea of a physical dog is a projection of consciousness from the dog's consciousness in spirit. So yes, of course, it goes back to spirit because it's never left spirit. That's where it exists primarily, first and foremost, just like you, just like trees, just like rocks, just like anything.
Amazing. And lastly, because we are running out of time, unfortunately, or fortunately, um, how are parallel realities and mirrors, actual mirrors on Earth, connected? How do parallel realities you've talked about today differ from parallel universes?
Again, a parallel universe is just, in a sense, a collection of frames of static parallel reality, photos, so to speak. It's just a matter of degree. You can say, again, you're creating a video by experiencing the static frames in a certain order, a sequence of them. You can say the same thing about the idea of a parallel universe. Every frame is its own universe, its own reality. The idea, again, is that it all goes hand in hand with the shifting that you do. You're creating a universe with every shift, experiencing a new universe with every shift. It's part of the photo, the static frame, because the totality, that's why we say every change is a total change. You're totally changing universes because everything that you understand goes with the change. A frame contains an entire universe, even if there's no motion in it. It's still a photo of everything, everywhere, every when. Now, the mirrors can be used as a symbol, a reflection, a permission slip to put you in touch with the idea that you could be looking at a parallel reality version of yourself. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm simply saying it's a tool that can be used that way if your consciousness seems to bend in that direction, because it's all about light, it's all about energy, it's all about frequency, and therefore mirrors are symbolic of the idea of a mirroring, and parallel realities are symbolic of a mirroring, and a mirror can be used as a window if your consciousness bends that way, as a permission slip, if you're so inclined. That's all we're saying. So we thank you for all of these questions and for the opportunity to provide information that you can take or leave in whatever way works for you.